We got a Thursday night game tonight between the Chargers and the Broncos. And we're looking at who we can start in this game, who we can bench. We're going to break down this matchup from a fantasy football perspective to see where the points could be scored, to see the likelihood of these outcomes for our fantasy players, to see what we want to do and strategize for our fantasy football teams. But before we begin, you need to click that subscribe button right now because we're doing these deep dives with these games. I'm going to do a deep dive like this with the Saturday games and then a bigger one for the Sunday games like we always do. Click that button. Stop missing out. Ric Flair's watching. You do not want to disappoint Ric Flair. But looking at this matchup here, Vegas has a 41.5 over-under. Vegas is saying this is likely going to be a lower scoring game. And we've had that in their last 3 games in this contest with these two teams. And when we look at the Broncos and we look at the Chargers, these are not two fast-paced teams. These are two teams that when given the opportunity, they want to be slow, they want to be methodical, they want to take their time, eating the clock, getting up and down the field. And on average, points scored in their last 3 games. Denver Broncos, 18.67 points. The Chargers, 13. That being said, highly likely we're not going to get a high-flying matchup here. Vegas is saying that. That's what that's saying. We're not trying to pick the over-under here, but we're using this as a gauge to look at the matchup to see whether or not this will be a high-flying game when it comes to scoring or a low-scoring game or just moderate. There's a chance that this game could push to moderate. There's a good chance for that, especially if something breaks on either end during the game, especially if we get a good start here and the game script gets pushed. That could potentially happen. There's potential for that we get 45 overall points or something like that. But the odds of it being like a complete shootout is very, very far off. But the odds of it being low scoring is very good as well. We're looking at the weather. It looks like it's going to be alright. This is from Audric, though, a betting site, so it might not be correct. That being said, both teams, on average, rushes for about a 100-yard clip per game in this matchup in the last 3 games. We could see them try to push the ball off the gut a little bit. Both teams like to use the running backs. That's something to look at. When you're looking at the quarterbacks here, Bo Nix has been the surprise of this rookie class, exceeding expectations, multiple QB1 performances, steadfast QB2 on the other games. Last time against the Chargers, he was a QB1. He's a good candidate if you're really hurting at the quarterback position. The thing about this, when you're pairing him versus top quarterbacks, most of the people have top quarterbacks going into the fantasy playoffs in the second round. So most of you are not going to start him. But if you're in DFS or if you're in a deeper league, you might be looking at him a little bit more. He's up and down, but he's pretty steady. He hasn't had a bust week since week 4. So he's going to be pretty steady. He'll at least get you QB2 results. Same with Justin Herbert. He's only really busted twice this year. And honestly, if you use 10 points as your threshold when you're looking at the scoring, then only once. But more than likely, you're going to get QB2 results from Justin Herbert. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be low scoring. But the way that quarterback scoring is this year, we're getting a lot of games where we're barely getting any quarterbacks breaking that 300-yard threshold. So the lower scoring performances allows it to be more lucrative for a QB2 and not be too far off. And with lower numbers like that, he scored 16 points against the Broncos last time in week 6, depending on your QB scoring too. But this is per RotoViz and their chart down here. And he's had multiple QB1 weeks, back-to-back QB2 weeks. He's living around the 16-point area. He's 17.3 points per game, so that makes sense. That being said, these two are not must-starts, but they're looking like good QB2s for the week. Bo Nix might have a little bit more upside if he can connect with Courtland Sutton down the field a little bit. Also, if he takes off a little bit more on the ground, he's had some games where he had that Konami code. But I'm looking at these guys factoring in as mid-level, high-end level QB2s for the week. Looking at the running backs here. So one thing you want to throw out there, Jaleel McLaughlin's out. Some websites had him as a pickup off the waiver wire this week. I'm looking at you fantasy pros. You guys need to do better. But Javonte Williams, I look for them to start with Javonte Williams. This is a big matchup for them. They're fighting for the playoffs. I look for them to start with Javonte Williams, start him off with the work. Audric, Estime gets sprinkled in. Whoever's the hot hand's going to get it. That's what we're looking at. Whoever's the hot hand when we get to the middle of the second quarter, back end of the second half, that's going to get it. And when we're looking at the scoring from the Chargers when it comes to allowing fantasy points to running backs, they are bend but don't break. They broke the Bijan Robinson, and that's about it. But they'll bend almost every week a little bit. 10 points or more, you'll at least probably... The running back that gets the touches, more than likely, it'll probably be Javonte Williams. I'm not throwing Audric Estime out of there because if he runs hot on a series, and that could be help from the offensive line, and that might be not even Javonte Williams' issue, then he could be it. But that top running back is probably going to get you the 12 range. 10, 11, 12, 13 points in this matchup. One thing that's going to hurt the production of a lot of these players is the clock's going to run fast. Clock's going to run fast in this game. Both teams are going to be very methodical. The Chargers' last 3 weeks are above average by 13.2% when it comes to allowing fantasy points to running backs. Most of that's due to Bijan Robinson. On average throughout the season, they're about average, just a little bit less by 10.3%. Not too bad. So there's potential in this matchup. I don't expect one of these running backs to go ham for 20-plus points. So if you're looking for that, you may want to go with somebody else. But if you're looking for the 12 range, odds are good. They're not really shutting down anybody. They got 3 shutdowns. They shut down Javonte Williams in week 6 on the road. That is something to look at. That's something to throw into the cards there. However, this team likes to spread out the volume between the running backs. We got one less running back to spread the volume with. And I do not know which running back's going to hit on them. They shut down Nick Chubb and the Browns. They shut down Isaiah Pacheco and the Chiefs. However, every other game, they'll allow a little bit. So we're looking for one of these running backs to cross the goal line. It's not like this game's going to end 0-0. There will be some points scored in this game. That's probably what's going to fuel you to that 10, 11, 12-point range. And now you're looking at the wide receivers. You're mainly looking at Courtland Sutton here. Courtland Sutton is the wide receiver to look at. And they will bend and break a little bit the wide receivers. They broke last week to Mike Evans. And they broke the T. Higgins. They broke the Calvin Ridley. They broke a few times this season and almost broke a few other times to like Tillman. They broke to Austin. That being said, we can get some fantasy points torched on this team. Courtland Sutton scored 15.3 last time in week 6. I look for him to get the targets and air yards. We bring in one of those deep bombs. He's good to go. He's getting a 25% target share and a 13.3 average depth of target. That's an elite work rate, especially when you throw in that 13.3 ADOT. Usually, the larger target share, your ADOT kind of regresses down a little bit because you're also soaking in the short targets of just trying to get the ball in your hands. But he's getting deep shots. He's getting a lot of air yards this year. That's what we like about Courtland Sutton. And honestly, this is a good matchup for him. He has multiple wide receiver 1 weeks. We got 4 of them. And when we bust, we don't bust that hard. It's been a long time since we busted hard. Week 7 against Saints, week 5 against the Raiders. It's been a long time since that's happened. Bo Nix is maturing. He's getting more comfortable in the offense. The ball's free-flowing a little bit more. He was a wide receiver 2 against the Chargers last time. You're looking at Troy Franklin, Devon Vele as ancillary pieces that could do something in this matchup. Troy Franklin gets targeted on like 22% of his routes ran. That's a high rate. He had a fair amount of targets last week. He has 45 on the season. He is good for deep, deep leagues. Probably like 18-plus teams, 20-plus leagues, 16-team leagues where you have deep roster requirements. When you're looking at Devon Vele, he's a guy you're putting in and praying to the fantasy gods with. Marvin Mims is an upside play every week, but you're not counting on it. When you're looking at the Chargers defense, last 3 weeks, they're averaging 40.9 PPR fantasy points to wide receivers, 19.7% above league average, about the same in the last 5. And they've been really getting hit hard by wide receivers. 36.9 by Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, 13.2, Drake London, 17.3, 12.3 by Rashad Bateman, 29.8 by T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, 25.4. So they'll bend and break. That's what we're seeing from this offense. The last time they shut somebody down was week 7 against the Cardinals. They shut down the Carolina Panthers. The early Bryce Young experiment. So we should get some firepower from the offense here. It's a pass funnel defense. They do well against the run, but they'll bend a little bit. That being said, Courtland Sutton, I think you know what to do from what I said. We're looking at the tight ends here. Adam Trautman came back last week, gave us a good showing. A good tight end too with 10 PPR fantasy points. This team does well against tight ends. We can definitely say that. They have broken a few times. When I think about breaking 10 or more PPR fantasy points to tight ends. So Mark Andrews in week 12, Trey McBride, and we're looking at Travis Kelce and Brock Bowers. All elite tight ends who gets funneled extra targets and extra work, but they're also shutting down elite tight ends, like they shut down Travis Kelce, Cade Otton, who's getting a lot of work. So I doubt many people who are deep in the fantasy playoffs, 12-man leagues, 10-man leagues, are looking to start Adam Trautman. But you might be thinking about it a little bit, maybe like an 18-teamer, 20-teamer. However, 16-teamer, you may have somebody, usually in 16-team leagues, who kind of hoard tight ends. This is not an advantageous situation for him. He needs to score a touchdown in this matchup. There's a chance for that. There's a good chance for that. He gets some work over the middle. He's a very athletic tight end prospect. Not the best odds of him going nuclear, racking up yards and catches. Maybe he can get some volume over the middle. He has to break free or he has to score a touchdown. 10-point threshold's not hard to hit. Like a touchdown, 6 points. The catch gets you to 7. The yards, if it's a 30-yard gain, there you go. 10 points, you're a tight end 2 for the week. It's not hard to hit. It's hard for tight ends to hit, though. The lower ADOT's hard for tight ends. 6.1 yards per target on the average depth there. That's not good for tight ends, and that's about average. That's about average. That's why tight ends are so up and down and hard to predict. Not the greatest matchup here. More for deeper leagues. Traditional leagues, no. However, you're looking at Gus Edwards and Kimani Vidal here for the Chargers. And look at the charts here for the scoring at their pictures. It ain't been looking good on the season. Gus Edwards has been averaging 3.4 yards per carry. Vidal has been averaging 3.2. The last 3 weeks, the Chargers have been shutting down running backs. The last 5, they've been shutting down running backs. They're below league average. Last 3 weeks, last 5 weeks, and on the season. On the season, they're close to average. They have broken a few times. Derrick Henry, and looks like that might be about it. They came close to breaking to J.K. Dobbins. These guys ain't J.K. Dobbins. I think they've proved that to you. These guys are not J.K. Dobbins. The thing about this team, they came close to breaking to Kenneth Walker. They're not Kenneth Walker either. But this team will push it up the gut. They're a slow, methodical team, and they will push it up the gut and volume you out up the middle and try to get you in the passing game as well downfield off of that. That being said, they could volume into fantasy production. They have shut down 2 teams, Alvin Kamara and the Jets. Also, third one enters the chat, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's earlier in the season in the quarterback play with Justin Fields and company. The Jets have been up and down all season long. And the Saints, and them being able to shut down Alvin Kamara, that's an interesting thing to look at there. You're looking at the rest of it. You got Nick Chubb scoring 12.5 on them. Amir Abdullah got 17 on them. Kareem Hunt got 17. Miles Sanders got you 11. There's potential here that one of these running backs break free, scoot a little bit. Maybe Gus Edwards gets a touchdown. Maybe that'll help you out. I'm looking for Kimani Vidal to get some targets here. Probably like the 3 to 5 range. He could break free off of that. None of them are must starts, though. They're scary starts, but they're running backs. And depending on how you're built, like some people build their teams deep at wide receiver, and then they scavenge running backs all year long. And if you're built that way, then you're probably going to have to throw your hat in the ring on one of these running backs. And honestly, it's a coin flip. I look for Kimani Vidal to get to work on the passing game. If the Broncos can get up, you're looking at a Kimani Vidal game in the passing game. If it's ugly and slow, you're looking at a Gus Edwards game, getting touches up the gut, maybe 40 yards on the ground, couple catches, maybe 2 catches for 17 yards, and you're praying that he crosses the goal line. Maybe something like that. Not super advantageous here. You're hoping one scores a touchdown, and you're hoping one breaks free, which could happen. That's what you're praying for. You're looking at the wide receivers here. And we'll just say this about Quentin Johnston. We've been saying this all year long. A couple weeks ago, I think it was the Week 13 game, he busted really hard, and people were in the comments section saying, hey, I'm never starting him again. I'm benching him. I'm putting him on the waiver wire. Next 2 weeks, he gets it done for you. He gets it done for you. But that's how he is. You just look at the chart. It's up, it's down. It's up and down. Due to looking at this chart, he's due for a down game. That does not mean anything. He gets good air yards downfield. He gets about 17 to 18% target share on the weekly. Right now on the target share wise, he's at 19%. So we're under 20% on the year. But a lot of these games are around 17, 18%. The games he blows up, like last week, he did well in scoring. Wide receiver 3 still had a 24% target share. But we can get it through the deep play. The air yards is what matters. A 12.2 ADOT on the season, average depth of target. So really with Quentin Johnston, we cash on that deep play, we're going to cash in fantasy. If we can't get that done, it's not happening. It's against the Denver Broncos. However, he was able to do it against the Chiefs, which is interesting. But that does not mean we're going to get it done against the Denver Broncos. We didn't last time. Ladd McConkey's a little bit more steady. His down games are usually not too bad. He hasn't had a down game since week 10. He's a very steady wide receiver. He's getting targets. He gets volume. What makes him steady is that 25% target share. The ADOT's not bad at 10.2, getting good volume downfield. We have 88 targets on the season. That allows him to be steady. He's a little bit safer, a rougher matchup, but he can get those shorter targets. He can rack up a little bit more. And this Denver Broncos matchup, everybody's scared of it, which you should be. They've shut down some teams. On the last 3 weeks, they're above average, almost 30% when it comes to allowing fantasy points to wide receivers, 44.4 PPR points per game. Michael Pittman got 11 on them. Jerry Jeudy got 38.5. Jacoby Myers got 22.1. You can break them. Zay Flowers did, but they also bend a little bit. But they'll shut down you a few times. George Pickens got shut down, but remember, Justin Fields back then. Ladd McConkey got shut down 8.3. Hopkins got shut down. So really, when you look at that, there's a chance we get shut down. It's not a safe bet. It's not a safe bet that we just catch them bending a little bit to us. They shut down both Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey. They shut it down. It could happen again. But we get a score. We break free. We could sneak by with a little something something. We could get to the 10 to 15 point range. That's what we're hoping for. The odds of them breaking free against this defense isn't that great. But there's some opportunity here. I think Ladd McConkey's startable, but he's risky. He's risky. When you look at start-sit decisions, really what you're thinking about here with Ladd McConkey is, can he break loose? Can we rack up enough volume? And can that touchdown happen? Quentin Johnston, he is volatile. Can we bring in that deep ball downfield? We bring that in, we're splashing, and then we reel in a couple extra catches. There we go. We're good to go. It's against the Broncos. They do not break that much to those types of wide receivers. Jalen Coker did well against them. Cedric Wilson did well against them. They'll bend a little bit. I do not expect any of these wide receivers breaking. I could see them bend a little bit. We're hoping that the Broncos get up somehow, some way in this game, or something happens to where the game script can get pushed a little bit. Now we're looking at Stone Smartt here, a very trendy tight end. I think this is a scary matchup. The Denver Broncos are above league average in the last 3 weeks, allowing fantasy points to tight ends. However, all that's really to David Njoku. They broke to David Njoku, they broke to Travis Kelce, they broke to Brock Bowers. Leading tight ends who are getting all the targets. He needs to score a touchdown. This is a touchdown bet if you start him. That's it. You're looking at all the other matchups, all the other tight ends. There's a bunch of other ones to look at. He's a touchdown bet if you start him. That's really all you can really say about this. You need the volume. You need that to get there. We got an ADOT so far on a small sample of 14 targets, 11.3, which is elite for a tight end. However, over a full season, I guarantee you that scope will be like 6 or something like that. We got 5 for Will Dissly. He's got 55 targets. That's the game script that this Chargers team wants to use with the tight ends. just about every NFL team. That being said, Smartt, you're hoping he scores a touchdown. He's due. He's due. 11 targets, though. Doesn't mean he's due, but he hasn't scored one yet. Will Dissly only has one. They're due to get a tight end touchdown. That's something that's in your favor. The matchup's not really in your favor. The game scripts may not be in your favor. You need to score a touchdown to bring it home. It's a touchdown bet if you want to start them. That's the matchup for tonight. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One thing for watching. Catch you on the next video.